Good evening and welcome to my daily live session on various tools and methods from my toolkit, from my toolbox for execution excellence. My name is Dinakar. I'm the founder of Samuthana and inventor of Duhau. Today, I changed the background with a slide indicating the total amount of time that we have spent in three core activities, which is consulting, coaching, and training and facilitating. That is behind me. You can see that to some extent. Let me go to this side. What you see there is the training and consulting, training and facilitating, and finally assessing and mentoring, which we do for all the various companies. We've been doing it since 2013 onwards. So with that very brief background, let me directly pitch in, deep dive into the tool which I have selected for today. Before that, a very brief recap of what we spoke yesterday, which is about the performance A cube equation, which is all about attitude, ability, and autonomy. I said that attitude is something which is the first most important thing for anybody to be performing well, which is the desire to do something. Ability is the skill, or the knowledge and the do-let, you can say, which is know-how and do-how of a particular job, how to do the job particularly. And then autonomy is to be able to choose, make choices on their own, because these three are fundamental for ensuring that there is magical performance by each and every person. And I said that you could possibly do that for yourself first, and after that look at trying to assess your team members when it comes to attitude, ability, and autonomy. So with that, let me directly jump on to today's topic, which is about CAPEX calculation. I don't think I need to enlarge that slide. It is quite visible, where we calculate three factors, which is NPV, which is net present value, then PBB, payback, and then the last one is IRR, which is the internal rate of return. I think it should be PBP, not payback period, it should be. So I'm sorry for that mistake. We'll correct it. IRR is internal rate of return. So these are the three indicators that one need to calculate whenever a capex is being done. So that's what I've been doing in my professional life. Capex is basically various capital investments that one would do. In the meantime, as I keep talking, let's see if I can correct that PPB. It's quite disturbing to me. So just to give me a second, and then I'll be back. Keep looking at my. So how do I go it? Yeah, now we need to end the show here first, and then just give me a half a second, and then I'm done, and then we can do the correct thing. This is wrong. Oh, it is something which is quite strange. Yeah, so there it is. Payback period and internal rate of return. So sometimes these small things irritate me a lot. So therefore, it's better to get it corrected. So thanks a lot for your patience and waiting for that. So when you buy any machine, any capital investment that one makes, one needs to understand whether this capital investment will be profitable or not. And for that, it's important to understand the three indicators, which is what I explained earlier: NPV, PBB, and IRR. And what do these three indicate is something which I want to explain now. I learned it when I was in college because I did my industrial engineering. And then during industrial engineering, we had a subject on P&L and economics and accounting and costing, controlling, etc. So there, this was taught to us. And later we used that in our work. Whenever we did any new capital investment, we had to calculate these three numbers. And then based on that, we would take a decision. However, one needs to also understand that many a times these numbers will not be always favorable. So there is definitely, what should I say, a gut feel or the final decision which would be taken based on various other inputs apart from this calculation. But it is important to do the calculation for any decision you take, any capital investment, any investment which would give returns over a long term is important to be considered for such a calculation, because when you're taking a decision, you also know what the risk involved is. And that's the basic idea of doing this calculation. It's not just about the calculation. So let's talk about what these three metrics notify. First is NBV. NPV is net present value. See, when any investment is done, it could be for investing a new plant, for investing a new factory, or for investing on a new machine, or it could be for investing a new business. Then initially what happens, we have to pump in money for that particular business or for that particular factory or machine, which would be the investment. And then this investment may have to be done in multiple stages. It may not be in one go. It could be in first year, second year, third year, fourth year. And then the returns on these investments, the revenue from these investments may start coming back only after 6 months sometimes, and after 3 years, 4 years, or maybe after 1 year, depending on what kind of a business. For example, consultancy, which I'm into, or consultancy, coaching, training, the gestation period is quite long. It's not something where you invest and tomorrow you're able to reap the benefits. For example, if you invest in a machine to make plastic bags, even the thick ones which are allowed, or such a machine, let us say, if you want to invest in a machine where you can blow and make plastic bags, then you would be able to recover the money, or start generating revenue from that investment within the next 2 days once you buy the machine and invest it. On the other hand, if suppose you say let's invest in a Xerox shop, okay, we put a Xerox machine and then we want to Xerox paper documents for people, and there the investment can be recovered within the next possibly 4 hours. Once the machine is commissioned, then the revenue starts getting generated. Whereas if it is something to do with a R&D facility, then it will take a longer time, because the time it takes for gestation and for recovering the investment and also for generating revenue is rather long, because you need to really convince people. Like in the case of my job of consultancy and coaching, which is all about the thought leadership and sharing of knowledge. So unless people are convinced that this guy is quite okay to engage with, then the engagements don't come up so easily. Or let us say, take the example of pharmaceuticals, where when a molecule has to be developed, and then after that a lot of trials has to be done, clinical trials, and initially lab trials and animal trials, and after that clinical trials, human trials. So all this entire thing for a development of a molecule may take a decade. And very fortunate that the vaccine development has taken 1 year. Imagine the amount of investment the companies would have done to develop the vaccine. And any investment of this kind, a CAPEX calculation is something which is very, very recommended, very much recommended, to understand what is the risk involved. So let's start about NPV. NPV means you invest some amount of money this year, and also invest some money next year, and then the year after next. That is as per the plan. And this plan can also change depending on the change in the environment. So based on the investments which you are doing in various years and the revenues which we will be generating in the next years, investment could be in terms of the capital investment. Also, it could be in terms of revenue investment. Revenue investment would be something which will be written off in the same year. For example, the tooling materials which are required for that need not be amortized. They need not be capitalized, is what the word is. When you capitalize it, you can amortize it. Amortization is a concept in accounting which would allow any investor to be able to replenish the same equipment after some amount of time of usage, which is when the equipment becomes obsolete. So at that point of time, because of obsolescence, which is basically the equipment's life and the functionality going out of what should I say, usage, that time there is some money available with the company to replace it. That's the concept of depreciation. So for depreciation to be done, one is to amortize the equipment, and then that can be done only for capital equipment, not for revenue expenses. So when you are investing money, it could be capital expenses, also revenue expenses, both have to be considered. And then you're getting some input, which would be the revenue. So these two, and whatever expenses are there, all put together, everything you put it into the Excel file. And then it's now comes the very interesting concept. You convert all these values to the current value, to the current year. That means, let us say, if you are to get an investment to be done in 2000, now we are in 2021. If 2023 you have to do an investment, which means the value of the money in 2023 would possibly be 12% more than what it is today because of the inflation. Therefore, you convert the amount of money which you have planned to invest in 2023 to the value in 2021 by removing the inflation effect. Similarly, the revenue which you generate in 2023, which could be 10,000 rupees, that 10,000 rupees will have a value of only 9,500 rupees, for example, in this year. If I'm not talking about any specific number, but I'm trying to tell you that 10,000 will be lesser than 10,000 in this year, because the inflation will not get into the inflation effect will have to be removed there. So once that is done, you get the current value of all the numbers which you have got in the next 10 years. And that particular current value, you would have whatever that is having a outflow, which is the cash outflow, and the cash inflow. The difference between the two is net present value. You got it? If the net present value is positive, then it's a good investment because you're going to recover money. If the net present value is negative, whatever you do, you won't recover the money because your present net present value is negative. And again, this you can do for 3 years, 10 years, 7 years, as many years as you want. Generally, for big capital investments, 7 years is quite okay. For any short-term investment like computers, software, etc., 3 years is maximum. And in 3 years, one has to have a positive NPV, which is extremely important. So thanks a lot, Winston. Track record is equally important. Absolutely right. Without the good track record to invest on something is absolute foolishness. No, not at all. So the recovery will be shown if the NPV is positive. Again, there are a lot of assumptions to do this calculation. You're assuming that a particular market price can be achieved. You're assuming that a particular price will have to be paid for a capex 2 years from now. But that can change. Of course, it can change, and that is the risk involved. Therefore, apart from calculating the NPV, one also calculates the risk if the prices increased by 10% and if the revenue got reduced by 10%. What is the risk involved? Depending on the industry, you can fix that percentage. And even then, if the NPV is positive, then you can close your eyes and invest it because the risk involved is very less there. You're not going to lose money. You may end up not making big money, but you are not going to lose money. That is something very, very important to know. Then what is PBP, payback period? That is the number of years it would take for you to recover the investment which you have paid without earning any interest. That means without interest to recover the money which you have paid at current value again. And that is the number of years. It will be in terms of years. And ideally, for an investment in machinery, I would imagine it should be somewhere around 3 to 5 years. For anything to do with software, I would go for less than 3 years. For land and buildings, you can go up to 10 years. 7 to 10 years would be okay. For solar plants, for example, even 15 years is okay because that's a long-term activity which you are doing. So payback period can be quite large for those investments. If the NPV is negative, will you have a payback period? I think when some of you would have guessed the answer. If the NPV is negative, payback period will be negative. You don't have any payback period. It will be infinite. It will be. There is no payback period at all because you can't get it. It's negative. You are not going to make money at all. The next is the IRR. What is IRR? It's called the internal rate of interest. This is again another metric which is used to calculate, to get an idea as to if you were to invest the same amount of money in a bank, you're going to be getting some interest, right? Fixed deposit interest. This IRR basically is talking about what kind of interest will you be earning on your investment over the next 7 years if you were to invest that in a bank. That is called as the internal rate of return. But actually, it's not interest that you're earning. It's basically giving an indication whether it is going to be profitable for you to invest in this entity or will it be possible to invest in bank. It should be better than FD. So for any investment, any business investment, I would recommend the IRR to be more than 15%, minimum 15% in India, and at least about 5% in the European context where the inflation levels are far, far lower. And of course, please don't go with my numbers. I'm not an accountant. I only have worked as an executive, and I've given you the guideline or thumb rule which we have used for our investment decisions. Now, if the NPV is again negative, will the IRR be positive? I think you got it right. IRR will only be negative because you can't make any money. Every year and year, you're going to lose money. So NPV is the first one, which is important to have a positive NPV, and then look at the payback period and then the internal rate of return. And at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, it's important to note that this is not the only criteria for making a decision. There are other factors too. Many a times you go with the gut and decide, but then when you are going with the gut, you are knowing that this particular investment is giving me an NPV of negative 2%, for example, or negative 10%, or negative $20 million, or 100 crore rupees, or 1 crore rupees negative. And that means that while you are investing on this particular project, which is your dream project, which is your favorite project, then you also need to think of investing on some other project, which may not be your favorite project, but a project which is going to offset this loss. That's something which is interesting. And that's what we used to do in our company. We would invest on technologies which are going to give us negative NPV and very high negative NPV, in fact, whereas that would be offset with technologies which give very, very high positive NPV, so that overall you will have a positive impact in the business. That's something which is important to note. So thanks a lot for watching. You understood about NPV, PBB, and IRR from a non-accountant. I'm not an accountant. and I'm sure you would be using it in your day-to-day calculations. If you are not doing that, please get your capital investments calculated and check for these three numbers. Normally, they are very boldly written in any project calculation: NPV, NPBB, and IRR. Thanks a lot for watching. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And before I leave, like always, I'm going to talk about what would be the topic for tomorrow, which is about Aaron Samuthana business health check. How do we do that? That's the topic for tomorrow. So let me take some time in explaining that, and I'm sure you would like to do that. It's an online questionnaire available in the internet. You can download and then go through that questionnaire. You assess yourself, your competitor, as far as you are concerned. How where do you stand, and then find out which is the benchmark, and then you can know where you need to work on for improvements. So thanks a lot for watching. And before I go, I again need to talk about my web workshop, which I'm doing on 31st of January at 11 o'clock. This is on Do How. It's a Do How web workshop on leadership and management. If you're interested, please do visit this website and register. And I would be really, what should I say, surprised and really happy to welcome you in that event. Thank you so much, and goodbye. Yeah.